Good evening, everybody. My name is Susan Jacobs. I'm going to be running tonight's meeting in my capacity as Vice Chair of the Board of Finance. Our regular Board of Finance meeting is Thursday night, at which time we will elect new officers. I think I'm safe in saying that if we all face the camera, Matt's watching and we can all wave hello. Hi, Matt.
Hi, Matt.
Okay. All right. Big shoes to fill. We're going to start, and make sure your mics are on if you're speaking, and we've been advised that we need to speak up with questions and answers of the various departments. And I know Tony has some, Tone has some introductory remarks.
Okay, thank you. First, I want to just bring to your attention some important, sort of how we've laid out the documentation, so you could sort of become a little more familiar with how all the documents work. So some of your departments will have a capital budget this evening. We used to do those separately, but because of the schedule and the timing of the most recent election, we felt it was appropriate to do those in January, along with the operating budget. So, for instance, tonight, building maintenance and pool and gym and parks all have capital budget aspects to their proposal. This is a summary of all the capital projects, which is a handy document to look at so that you can see them all in one place. As a note to this document, the Board of Education has made an adjustment to their capital budget, which will be reflected in a future version of this. But so for the ones you have tonight, it's a little bit of old information for the Board of Education, but nevertheless, this is a nice document to sort of review for capital. There's a, and that's, it should be a tab in there, yeah. There's a personnel roster, which has all of the full-time personnel, salaries of all full-time personnel, which you can, which in most cases ties back to the budget request. Each of the capital projects have a information sheet, which sort of looks like this, and you should be able to tie these back to that summary. They're also on ClearGov. For those of you who have access to ClearGov, that's where these were generated from, and you'll see those in the budget request for each department. And finally, each department has an operating request, which usually consists of a summary, which you've seen in the past, and then a detail behind all of the line items, what's in each line item. If there's something that you don't see or something you have a question on, I encourage you to ask it. And finally, I have this last piece which I wanted to hand out. Sorry. So what's being passed around is a summary of all of the budget requests and a mill rate and tax increase as it currently stands. You'll get this document throughout the process as it's updated as we receive new information. So I want to just go through, there's a date and stamp at the bottom so you can see which version you're looking at. As we get more information, this will be updated. Just to show you how this works, the expenditures are listed first. These are expenditures totals by department. You have an actual from 22-23, a budget from the current year, and a request for next year. So for example, the Board of Selectmen budget is a 3.82% increase over the request is 3.82% over the budget for the current year. So that's how that works for each department. Once you get down, you'll see an expenditure total of $60,497,372. Those are all of the requests that were in a total of all the requests, which is 7.5% over the current year. The next section are non-tax revenues. These are revenues that we receive that we are not tax related, including state grant revenue, that's intergovernmental, department charges from recreation fees or transfer station fees. We'll have a section on that. I think it's the last day. We'll go over all of our revenues, investment income, and then there's some other revenues there. So we subtract that from the expenditures to get an amount we need to raise in taxes in order to balance the budget. In this case, it's $54,702,253. That's 7.7% increase in the amount of taxes that need to be raised in order to balance the budget. And then finally, the last piece is to distribute that tax burden on the community, which is we use the grand list to do that. In this particular scenario, we do not have the grand list in the calculation yet because Marcia has not finished the grand list. She is required by state law to finish it by the 31st of January. She's usually ahead of schedule, so I expect she'll probably be complete, hopefully definitely by your fourth meeting, but hopefully by next week, early next week. So we can include the grand list figures in here, which will then most certainly drop the mill rate. But on this particular sheet, the mill rate is 48.82, which is 8.3%. Hopefully that makes sense.
Most of us are
But we're-
familiar with this, and it's a very helpful way to start what is a dynamic process.
Right.
We get information, we find out what the needs and wants are, we have discussions, we go forward with several meetings to get to a final disposition on this, but this really is a very helpful working document to start with.
And the some information that will come later in the process, some of our insurance figures
Right.
are usually don't come until later in the process. The state usually doesn't release their budget, the governor's budget, it's not until early February, so we have to go through that process. So there's a lot of moving parts, so this will be updated, but yeah, this is a sort of a good snapshot of
Okay.
where we are.
All right, good. I think we can start to hear from the departments, and I would encourage any of you who want to give us a little context as to what your department is doing and what's new and what's changed. We would love to hear all of that. That's important to understand what you're going to be talking about. And I believe we're starting with building maintenance, Brad, and that's your tab 1370, if I'm not mistaken.
I would just suggest you do capital first.
Oh, you want to do capital first?
Yeah.
Okay.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Brad Parsons, and I am the building maintenance foreman for the town of Woodbridge. I'm a resident of Woodbridge. I've been doing this work for the town of Woodbridge since August of 1992. So I've been around. I do a lot of different things for the town. I fall underneath Public Works as a branch of Public Works. I also take care of the town pool, and basically do any request that the town has of me. I've been doing it for a very long time. Hopefully not too much longer. So I'm here tonight to present the building maintenance capital budget, and I believe the first item on the list is the Woodbridge Country Club.
Yep, correct.
Country Club outbuilding removal. For some of you that don't know, I've already removed 3 buildings last year, and these are the remaining 7 buildings that I'm capable of removing if you so choose. They are now become a hazard, they're severely rotted, they're dangerous, blight, and it's my recommendation that myself and Public Works go to the site at 50 Woodfield Road and remove all 7 structures, truck them off, and leave nothing but a concrete slab. Completely remove them. So the metal will be scrapped, that money will go back to the town, the slab will remain, the concrete block is separated, that's brought down to another individual in town and recycled, for which we have to pay for. I have to pay for all the containers for wood and any other debris. And that's pretty much it for the first item on my capital budget. I would highly recommend we do that. We have children crawling on these buildings, very rotted, bad roofs on a lot of these structures that kids can get up on, fall through the building. I believe the cart barn at the country club was set on fire last year. I can't remember, I believe it was last year it was set on fire. So they're very problematic buildings. And I think it would overall improve the overall site of the country club and make it a much more inviting space for people to walk their dogs, to jog, bicycle, or simply take a walk.
Brad, what's the timeframe it'll take for this?
It'll
type
probably
of
take
project?
about month and a half. We'll do it over the summer. I have to utilize public works staff, so I have to get in touch with Warren. You know, he has projects throughout the summer where he needs his entire staff. And I checked with my brother Adam, who was behind me, who's the public works foreman, and he'll tell me whether or not he has staff available to do work that day. I'll have to rent an excavator. Most of the other equipment we have dump trucks to cart off material, such as concrete. I think it's a good thing.
And did you say,
$70,000 is my estimate to do the work.
did you say that there's some recouping of cost from the sale of the metal?
All scrap metal, I save. Every bit of it. It's even separated again, so copper goes in one pile, steel goes in another pile.
Any idea how to quantify that?
No,
Okay.
none whatsoever.
Okay.
Some of it's embedded in concrete block, but I'm a big scrapper, I believe in that. So as soon as it goes down to the scrap yard, we get a check, it's returned to the finance department. I've done it many times for Tony in the past, many times.
Any chance it's worth $70,000?
I don't think so. I've done,
I know, I'm just kidding.
well, I could have got there, but maybe.
Any questions on this?
Yeah, can you just help me to understand where the figure 70,000 comes from? I assume time, labor.
Labor is one thing, the container rental is one thing, the excavator, I have to rent an excavator, that's another costly item.
Okay.
Excavators are not cheap, and usually, the longer I rent it, the cheaper it is. If I rent it for 2 days, it's very expensive, a week it's even cheaper. I do a 3-week period, it's even cheaper then. And anything's left on the rental, if it can be utilized at Public Works for moving anything down in the back, we have substantial piles of miscellaneous material down there, which we've done before.
Do you foresee this requiring any overtime work?
Absolutely. That's part of the labor, that's part of the cost.
Okay.
A lot
Could
of
that
it's
be
picked up.
avoided?
It depends. We have people that go on vacation, we have people go on sick. I don't like to leave the excavator sitting there on a Saturday and Sunday. So it's cheaper if you need to bring people in on the weekend to do the work on the weekend. Much cheaper.
I see.
Okay. What else on capital?
Next item on capital budget is the roof replacement at the library.
Wait, Brad, I'm sorry, there was another
Oh,
question?
oh, any other questions?
Sorry, I just had another question. I heard you say summer, ideally. If there was money available in this fiscal year and we wanted to try to get it started, is it something that could be broken into 2 pieces, all done in the spring, or? do
It
you
could be
want-
done in the spring. I think it's a good idea to stay off the property when the property's wet. I don't want to make a mud hole. I have to come in and remove the structure and leave the site clean. I can't leave anything but all you'll see is a nice clean slab. You know, we have fill, I have to regrade the site. It's easier to do that in the summer, spring and summer.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, go ahead.
Next item, library roof repair. I hope you can see the pictures that I've enclosed in my capital request. It's for the old section of the library, the slate roof, which is the oldest part of the building. That slate roof needs to come off. I have extensive leaking around the old chimney. I assume, Tony, that they're seeing the same photos that I am?
Yeah,
Yeah.
correct, yep.
That would be mainly the photo on the right is the roof, all around the chimney, all underneath that right-hand side slate roof, needs to be pulled off, reflashed, ice and water shield put down, and the brick needs to be repointed. If it were a roof, such as the roof on top of the town hall here, it would be much easier. But this is a slate, nailed-in slate roof, original. You have to pull off quite a bit of it to get to the area that you want to repair. And as you can see on the picture on the left, It's doing considerable damage to the ceiling around the fireplace. It's important that we definitely do that. We've attempted one repair, I've attempted one repair out of my own operating budget, and we were unsuccessful. And I determined that the best way to tackle it is to take the roof, that side of the roof off, fix it once and for all.
Are we looking at it for the next budget cycle specifically because of the work you have or because of the money availability? In other words, could it be done sooner?
It could be, well, we have to get into spring. I have to get out of the winter. I can't get a roofer to tackle it at this time of year. It's a precarious roof, it's very steep, and I don't want to have a contractor come in and damage the existing slate roof. It's very expensive to replace slate. So I would do it in July. I can live with the current leak. The ceiling needs to be replaced anyways. It's that damaged. So
Does this $20,000 cover that, Brad?
it does. It does.
Is that guttered, that part of the roof?
I'm sorry?
Is there-
Yes.
Is there gutter, and that
Oh.
also has to be replaced and,
No,
Repair
that
this?
section of gutter does not. That's all copper.
okay,
That does not need to be replaced.
okay.
There are other places in my capital budget that we need to take care of some gutter work.
Okay.
Are you gonna be able to salvage the slate, reuse it, or are you gonna have to get new, you're gonna buy new slate?
I think when, if you recall, some of you recall Joe Adalizzi, you remember Joe? That's a long time ago when he was in charge, we took that roof off, and inevitably, a few pieces of slate get broke. It never fails. Not many, but there's always 5 or 6 pieces that crack, they get cracked.
I didn't know if you were gonna take it all off.
No, it's just probably about 5 to 6 feet out
Okay,
is what I'm gonna recommend.
and you're probably gonna, and you're gonna try to reuse it.
Try to
wherever you
reuse
can.
every last
Okay,
piece,
that's fine,
always.
yep.
Any other questions on the roof?
Keep going.
Keep going. Center building cupola repair. I'm sure for those that aren't familiar with it, it's right behind me, on top of the center building, 3-tab shingle roof. That cupola leaks. That cupola needs to be reflashed, the paint stripped off of it, everything caulked back up. That's pretty much it. I had it done in 2008, I believe. It's scaffolding's involved, wood separates. Any wood that's rotted will be replaced. We've never found rotted wood on it, but it's a possibility. And it's leaking all the way downstairs on the main floor of the center building. Slightly. It's a drip.
Is this a contractor you get to do this work?
Yeah, we do that.
okay.
That's too precarious for building
Yeah,
maintenance.
okay,
It's-
okay. Anything else on the
Yes, I
cupola?
have a question. Have you considered, if there is rot, using PVC as a
Oh, absolutely.
material?
Yeah,
And
PVC, Trex, yeah.
Yeah, and how
Yeah.
would that impact the cost? It'd be certainly lower maintenance over the longer term, I'd imagine, but maybe a greater upfront
It
cost?
really wouldn't impact the cost, because I
Okay.
can get up on the roof and get up and touch the cupola, front and back. I just choose not to take a ladder on the roof to get on top of the cupola. And there's not a lot of wood above what I can reach, physically reach. There's less wood down there. The main box of the cupola seems to be whole, but the wood tends to separate. Water gets in, yeah, swells, flashing. You know, the top of the cupola seems to be fine. Good,
Okay.
good coat of gold paint, really make it shine for a couple of years.
Okay, next.
Boiler replacement at the police department. We have one single boiler at the police department. And
Now, this is for
fortunately,
next year's budget, right?
next year's
26.
budget, yes, 2026. That boiler is 40 years old. I would highly recommend we replace the boiler, simply because of its age. That's very old.
Assumingly with a more energy efficient alternative, do those exist?
2 high condensing boilers and a remote hot water heater. Currently, you run that boiler in the PD to heat hot water for sinks, which is very inefficient. 2 smaller condensing boilers with a 90% rating or better and a standalone, small hot water heater. It's basically for sinks. We only have 2 showers in the police department. The female shower, I've never seen it used. I don't know of anybody that's ever used it. Very few police officers shower at the PD. So basically, it's hand sinks. So you're wasting energy heating hot water for the sinks constantly. 24/7, 7 days a week, it'll heat hot water for the sinks. You know, August, it's heating hot water for no reason. Better to get something that's more energy efficient.
I feel like I've been in that boiler room. Is it towards the back of the building? The canopy?
I'm trying to give you an example. The boiler room is a little bigger than that bathroom over there. That's how tight that boiler room is. I don't know how they got it in there in the first place. It's
We're not gonna ask that
very
question.
tight. I don't know how they got it in there. It is in a very tight space.
Okay,
It's done very well. It's gas fired, not oil fired.
okay. Anything else on the police department boiler room?
I had a question about the hot water heater. Would the new one be an on-demand hot water heater?
On demand, gas fired,
Thank you.
on demand.
Just as a side note, this is something that the Center Building Committee is looking at,
Right.
and we'll be coming to the Board of Selectmen with recommendations, I would assume. I don't think it's gonna be February, probably sometime in March. And part of that is gonna be the whole renovation of the entire building, which is the mechanical, the electrical, all the systems are gonna get all ripped out and all redone,
In the center
including
building.
PD. So this is something that, this is just on the table, it's not this year, so it's something,
There's a placeholder.
hopefully, it's just
Yeah.
as a placeholder that
Yeah.
we know it's gotta get done
Yeah,
if the building doesn't proceed.
yeah. Okay.
If the boiler was to fail today, you'd have to rent a trailer
Right.
with a boiler in it, and that runs you approximately $1,000 a day. And it does not cover the cost of connecting that boiler to the existing pipework inside the building. Then I have to get a contractor to do that, get a boiler, any boiler to go in there, which is not easy to do nowadays, at any price to restore the heat in the building. Or you'll spend $1,000 a day on a trailered boiler.
So we're gonna be dealing with this at some level, at some point,
At some
no matter
point,
what. Yeah,
at some point,
okay.
it'll
Okay.
just fail.
Okay,
And
okay.
anything else on
Nope.
No, keep going.
center building roof replacement? These are 2 locations on top of the center building where the roof is leaking. And if you look at the first photo in the gym entrance, you'll see an elevator. All the way around that elevator shaft, water is migrating from the roof above it, follows the walls down the elevator shaft, on the back side of the elevator shaft and on the front side, and one additional wall. On the second photo is over by daycare, where you go from the main hallway in the center building into the daycare. That's the second location, all coming from the EPDM rubber roof, flashing, and repointing a brick. I have brought in a roofer who inspected it. You can clearly see the flashing around these locations that I've shown you pictures of, wide open. Flashing is open, water's pouring in, the brick needs to be repointed. To do that, you have to tear up some of the EPDM roof, reflash it, lay a section of new roof down, repoint the bricks.
Is this the same issue with?
Again, it's gonna fall within the,
It's gonna fall
within
within
the
that
purview
ambit, so
of
we're
that, yeah.
just, this is a placeholder for today.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's correct.
okay.
Just simply for purposes of, you had the roof in the library, you had the roof cupola, and you had the center roof.
Yep.
How old are these at this point?
Cupola is
Would you say over 20, over 15 is enough?
1928, I don't, I went to school at the center building. I don't recall seeing the cupola, but I was awfully young. I don't recall seeing it, it might have been there.
It's old.
It's very old.
Yes.
The library
Oh my
roof, the
God.
slate roof,
That's the
When I was in the center school going to class, when I got out, I went to that library, so I don't know. It's
My
very
point-
old.
My point being, these are all, I mean, they've aged to a point
Yeah,
where they
these
need
are
this.
spots that are leaking that are very, very, very old,
Okay.
very old. So as far as the roof goes on the center building, the flat roof, it's in, I haven't found any leaks in it. It appears to be in good condition. It's inspected. I look at it constantly. I have to go up on it to change filters. The 3-tab shingle roof on the center building seems to be in good shape. I've only had 2 sections of shingles blow off. That was because of snow. Most of the roof in the center building is fine, and the library. We don't have a lot of library on the rubber roof. But most of the roofs are okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Would it be more cost-effective to approach them at the same time? I know they're on different buildings, the roof repairs, but I think you suggested the library be done this fiscal year and this roof repair in '26.
Yeah, because the library roof is greater in need than the other leaks. I can live with, I can skip I'll go to another year for the center building because the leaks are minor. You may have 2-3 ceiling tiles that are stained with small stains. I don't think any roof should leak. The library roof is a little bit different. That's actually leaking, and why we don't see too much damage downstairs, even though we do, is because above it, there's a bunch of junk in that attic. It's unsafe to walk around in. It's insulated, so by the time the water gets down there, it has to pass through all that. So I don't see, the damage isn't substantial, but it's enough to warrant to do the library first.
I understand. I just didn't know if it was more cost-effective.
No,
Like you
not
said with
really.
the excavator.
No,
the-
I don't get a
okay.
deal on roofing.
Okay.
I don't do a bunch, no, they don't do it that way.
Well, and again, the big picture is being looked at
Yes.
for all of that going forward, so that's gonna answer that question, so,
Yeah.
yeah, all right.
All right, next is library boiler replacement. It's actually not the boiler replacement. If you see in the photograph over here, you'll see some gray and some dark stained pipe. Sort of in the top of the photo and right beneath it, you'll see another gray and dark stained pipe. Those are hot water header heating supply and returns. As water goes out of the boiler into the building, it goes through a main header, which is a 4-inch diameter pipe, circulates through the building, comes down to the bottom of the basement, and returns all the heated water back to the boiler at the bottom pipe. That's severely damaged. If we lose the header in the library, you simply can't bypass it. There is no bypass. You lose heat in the library. I think it's long overdue to be replaced. There's nothing off the shelf. It was custom made when it was installed in 2000, when the library was built. Now it has to be fabricated and reinstalled new, both supply and return.
Okay.
Those are important. Any questions on that one? Next is the rain gutter replacement at the library. That also includes the center building. Some of the copper gutter on the library has peeled over because of ice damage, front and back. The center building, where you enter on the library side, that aluminum gutter is peeled right over. It's been there since I've been here. The copper gutters, we have done repairs before. It's extensive in some locations. I have downspouts that have holes in them, all through the center building, front.
Okay,
Are there actions we can take to avoid this issue recurring?
The only way you could stop that from happening is put in heated gutters. That's expensive. They don't last long. I don't like them at all. There's one on this building.
Interesting.
Yep. I do not like those.
Thank
they
you.
have their own problems,
They have major problems.
Right.
They don't last long.
right,
Very expensive to install.
correct, yeah, okay. And what else is left on that?
We have 2 more items, paint and wallpaper, the interior of the library. That's a request from the library director. He wants me to put that in my budget. He would like his interior repainted. and wallpaper. That's out there quite a ways in 2028.
Right. Right.
And the last is an elevator upgrade at the library. He requested that I put that in there.
We've done that before, haven't we?
I've done that already. I've already updated the library. He's looking for a total modernization of the library elevator. Yeah, because I like Eric, the director, because he asked me to carry it in this budget, doesn't mean I agree with it. Just to be honest,
Okay.
I've renovated the entire library elevator. And that's it for building maintenance, capital.
And we're just gonna jump into operations here.
Building maintenance operating budget. I can tell you that the building maintenance operating budget is the same as it was last year, except for, obviously, staff, personnel, wage increases. If you'd like, I can go through every single line.
No, that's okay.
That's what I
I
thought.
think if there's anything you wanna highlight, that's fine. If there's
Nothing
any
on there.
questions
Is
anybody has.
Anybody have any questions on the building maintenance budget, any line item?
If it's steady as she goes, that sounds
Steady as she
great.
goes.
Okay.
You
I'll
wanna
just
go
make,
quick?
One comment on, general comment on the operating, budget salary lines. So, for many of the salary lines, we have two unions in town. We have a police union, we have a town hall, and public works union, and then we have non-union. So at the last year, they were all negotiations, the two unions, so we had no salary increases in either of those budgets. We had a higher contingency. So one of the contracts is settled, and so the non-union and the AFSCME union increases are in the department budgets, which there's 2 years in each budget. So that's why there's one for this year, because it hadn't been settled at the time we did the budget for this year, and then there's an increase for next year, both of which are 2.5%. So that's why you see a 5% increase.
And that's,
So
but it's
Yeah.
built in here, yeah.
Right, so there's it's 2.5%,
Yeah.
but there's a corresponding decrease in contingency to account for the first year, because they were not settled at the time the budget was done. So there was an increase in contingency to account for that in the current budget.
Good.
Tony, is that, are those negotiations or the timing of that, the reason behind the 8.19% increase buyback sick? Or what, can you help me understand what that
Is this
is?
in building maintenance?
It's here,
Yes.
50700.
So buyback sick is a feature in the contract, whereas employees earn sick time throughout the year, and they have an opportunity to buy that back or put it in a bank. If they buy it back, then that's it, or they can put it in a bank, and there's a cap on the bank as to how much sick time they can have.
Okay.
So that's reflective of what the actual usage might be in that particular year.
Okay.
Okay, good. Brad, thank you.
Thank you.
Pool and gym next,
Yep,
capital, I believe.
yep. That's 1515 in case anybody's interested. Thank you.
Yeah, if you have an extra, yes,
And that color.
I have it somewhere.
Thank you, Brad.
David?
Thank you.
Oh, wow.
Good.
Where are we?
I know that every
Budget,
sense of the word.
capital budget.
Okay, go.
All right, I'll go as fast as I can. I don't need that. A lot of papers. Pool structural repairs, number one on there is for 2025 for 120,000, and that will address the window and the deck hatch at Beecher Road School Pool South that I am responsible for. I did a study, or had a study done back in October of '22, and had the entire pool looked at. I drained it. I structural engineer and a firm come in and look at the entire pool inside and out, excluding the locker rooms, filter room, filters, pumps, structure itself, window, filter drains, scuppers, condition of tile, everything imaginable that's associated with that pool. And this is the report they came up with. And based on his report, and the last page, he included figures, his estimates to do these repairs. And he also came up on page, I'm not sure what it is, if you go to page 18, he prioritized the repairs. I read his report, looked at his priorities, and came up with my own capital budget repair list. Basically, instead of spending close to $1 million all at once or requesting $1 million to fix the pool, I broke it down to do into phases. Easier on the taxpayer. And they don't need, all these repairs in this report don't need to be done all at the same time. I've been taking care of the pool for 30 years. I know how the pool operates. So the first item on the list is that pool window and that deck hatch. And as you can see in the picture, the first picture, that's behind the pool window on the inside. The condition of that concrete wall, the window does leak. The deck hatch, every time a bather gets out, stands on the deck, water drips down on the deck hatch. That deck hatch is right above that pool window. Water splashes down on the concrete wall and has deteriorated that wall for years. Every time you wash the pool down with a hose, all that water on the deck goes in the deck hatch, splashes down on the concrete wall right below the window, and worked its way to that concrete wall, and that's the result, the first photo on your left. The last photo on your right is the exterior view of that window. The middle photo is the deck hatch. Unusual to have a window at a pool. That's my first request. And it's second on his priority list. The first one on the priority list is new filters. I've already changed the filters. There's water in it, and there's water in the pool as we speak. Any questions on the window?
I mean, what's the point of the window? Like the function?
When I worked there in '72, I only worked there for a year and a half. Coaches would go downstairs and sit in chairs and observe people's stroke, I
Oh.
guess. Yeah,
An observation?
Yeah.
Okay.
observation window.
Brad, why don't you go through all of this very quickly
Sure.
on the pool? So if these are all phased in things
They're all
that you're-
phased in.
That's your proposal. There's
Yeah,
a bigger
pool main
question
drains
here.
replacement.
Yeah.
Yeah, they all sort of fall in line with the report.
Right.
If you want to continue to, I'll say this, to continue to operate a pool, I would not prolong the window replacement, nor would I postpone the second request, which would be the pool main drain replacement.
And that's why you phased it in the way that you've done.
I did. Those are 2025. Those are deal breakers right there.
Right. Okay.
But you said if we keep the pool
If you keep,
operational.
that's, yep, I merely propose if you choose to keep the pool operational.
Right.
How long the pool can last without these repairs? His report states that, 2 years?
From 2022. That,
No, I just
oh,
put water in it 2 weeks ago.
okay.
Okay.
So 2 years from today,
Today.
roughly. Okay.
Well, that's helpful to know. We're
Yep.
obviously not gonna solve that problem tonight, but it's important
We
to
will not.
understand that.
But the
Okay.
report will help you. I did have, I want
Yeah.
to say on a side note, I did have another highly reputable company that looked at this. I had another highly reputable company come in and look at the pool, just a walkthrough while the pool was empty. Tell me why it's leaking. I want to hear your opinion. He did say that if you choose to keep the pool, you're easily going to get 25 years out of it. And he said it's a great pool. It's in excellent condition. And Sampson's report will even tell you that the pool is still in good condition. And you can get quite a few years out of that pool if you choose to continue to operate a pool.
Okay. And I think we all understand that that's a much bigger question that has to
Yes.
get answered by the
Finances.
stakeholders on that.
Yep.
Okay,
And we go right to pool and gym. There are no changes in pool and gym budget, operating.
And it just assumed, the pool and gym budget assumes we're operating a pool,
You're operating the pool,
so.
okay.
which you will be operating the pool in
2 weeks, maybe?
2 weeks. You should be able to go right back in it.
Any other quick questions for Brad before we move on?
For pool,
How will the operating of the pool expenses change, given that they're shutting down the school for the roofing this summer? Will that change any of the operational costs?
none for the pool,
Okay.
none whatsoever. The pool's gonna operate in approximately 2 weeks. I'll open it back up. It should be ready.
It won't be operating this summer, though. They won't let people in there because of all the construction.
That I didn't know. Why would they lower South School?
Well, I heard at the Recreation Commission last night.
Oh,
Does that mean summer camp won't be offered?
Well,
unbeknownst to me, I
uses it, but that's-
I would not have known that if it happened last night.
Yeah, I think what Mika's getting to is that that all seems to be in some
State of flux.
state of
Okay.
flux. Right, right.
Yeah, there was no way I would have known that. You're absolutely right. I don't know how long the roof project is, when the roof project ends. I assume it's gonna end when school starts.
If you fill it with water and you're gonna use it in the spring before the conclusion of the school year,
Yep.
over summer, you have the same cost, you have to go and check it, you have to maintain it.
Everything remains the same, yeah, electricity, water, all the chemicals, all that.
Question.
There'll
Probably
be
the
no,
maintenance, the custodial, probably.
Yeah,
yeah,
pool support, things of that nature
Yeah,
would not
it's
exist,
still gonna-
but
it's still
certainly the
gonna
expense of
happen.
actually running the pool itself.
I
Right.
still
You have to
use
run
the
it.
same amount of chemicals as long as there's water in it, I use the same chemicals. Doesn't make any difference.
All
And
right,
that's
good.
it. Sorry
you.
it took so long.
No,
No,
not at all.
thank you very much.
Information.
We got a lot of buildings. I believe that we're looking at parks. Hello, Adam, how are you?
Hello, everybody.
Adam?
I'm Adam Parsons, and I'm Brad's brother, of course, if you don't know me, Steve. I'm the Public Works foreman, and I run the Parks Department. And I'm here to talk about my budget, capital first, correct?
Yes.
All right. I think we're gonna start off with the mower, 61-inch mower replacement. Replace it in 2025. Pretty self-explanatory. It's gonna be 19 years old at the time of replacement. The mower deck is rotted, it's getting old, it's basically done. So it needs to be replaced. And I want to get a smaller mower, so it's not as expensive as the bigger mowers are, almost $50,000. So this one is smaller, get into the cemetery, get into the bullpens, get in all the small areas, so.
Adam, if you get into small mower, just generally speaking, is there any, do you look at, or is it not feasible, or it doesn't work for you in terms of alternative, like electric or something along those lines?
I've been experienced with electric mowers, and we had one, I was a golf course superintendent, and we had one greens mower, and always had problems with it. The reason we had it, because the golf courses around the community, and we couldn't get out there early in the morning, the gas mower would be loud, so we bought an electric mower. But anyways, that being said, we always had problems with it.
Okay.
So in the business of cutting grass, there's not many mowers that are electric in a bigger aspect.
Right, an industrial. setting.
Yeah, in a homeowner, yes, I can see that, but.
Thank you.
Next item is a Parks pickup. It's a 2006. It has extensive rust on it. Don't be fooled by the miles. It's a rust bucket. We just cannibalized a 2004 pickup in Public Works. We scrapped that. So this is a 2006, so it's 2 years difference. So that needs to be replaced, definitely, because I pull a 20-foot trailer with that with a 4,000-pound mower on it. That's dangerous.
Yeah.
Just remind me, either Tony or, do we get these vehicles through the state contract?
Yes, we do.
Yes.
Pricing?
We do,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, it seems like this other day, it was like you could buy a truck for $36,000, now
Yeah.
they're 70 grand,
It's
you know, it's
crazy.
just like, what happened? It's just weird, terrible.
Adam, may I ask a question? Are staff required to get undercarriage sprays done yearly before salt applications to help prevent rust? So townspeople do that?
Yes.
Okay,
And we don't do it with the mowers.
okay.
The problem with our mowers, you use them and you wash them down, and we put them in a storage container, and they never dry out, ever. And you talking with grass clippings, the
Yeah.
rust, you can't imagine.
Okay.
So,
But for the vehicles, it
Oh,
is
definitely.
practiced?
yeah, oh, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, we have a wash bay down below, we have a container that cleans it and, of the salt. It helps, doesn't help that much.
Okay, so I think maybe I'm speaking about something else. I don't want to waste time. I have a state-issued vehicle for my job.
Yeah.
And we have to go each year before the snow falls to our state mechanics, and they spray like a
Sealant?
chemical, yeah, on the undercarriage
Right.
that supposedly prevents salt and other things from rusting
never
and
heard of it.
damaging.
I'll look into
So,
that,
okay.
yeah.
And maybe I can get the proper name
Sure.
of it.
But to do that, you have to promise to mow the lawn. Otherwise, all right, go ahead. Sorry.
So, the third request is a tennis court, that we have down here on Center Road, the crack repair and painting. That'll be done, recommended 2026. That's kind of a hot item. No, I do them all at one time. They come in, they power wash it, they seal the cracks, and they put 2 coats of paint on it, and then they stripe it.
And then, well, you have it on 25 and 26.
Yeah, that's the accumulation to get to 26,
To
because
get
it's so
to
much money,
26.
30,000 or so, and then another 30,000 to equal.
People are out there all the time.
Oh, the
It does
pickleballs are
get-
through the
does
roof
get
now.
used,
Oh,
yeah.
it's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy now.
Is that typically done every 5 years or so? At
Uh,
that frequency?
well, the court's getting old,
Yeah.
so it's cracking more often. Asphalt, it's asphalt. And there's not the greatest drainage there, that's a fact. It's not a dry area, so it cracks. And now it's excessive amount of cracking. And they're not huge, they're not an inch wide, but they're just everywhere, and it's a trip hazard.
Right. Right. It's dangerous if you're
Yeah,
playing tennis.
yeah, I mean, next item is a ball field grooming machine. This is what we use to groom the baseball fields before the tournaments start, every day, basically. And, we had trouble with this machine before. I had the mechanic rebuild the motor. And it's been good, but now it's starting to show signs of, it's not running very well. And it's due. It's old, it's gonna get old, it's being old. So I wanna replace that in 2026.
And just for the infield?
Yeah, yeah. That's our bread and butter for baseball, makes it shine,
It's not a drag.
Yeah, it's like a metal that has carbide tips to it, and you go around circles, and it
Yep.
smooths out all the, imperfections, and,
Smooths it out.
yeah.
Smooths out all the
Yeah.
stuff.
So no one trips.
So the machine is its own unit, it's not an attachment to
No,
another-
because it's attached to the machine, you just drag it behind it, and so, yeah. So the last capital item that I'm asking for in 2026 is the large mower. And that cuts 11.5 feet wide, and that's starting to rust. And, I can keep it going as best I can. It's year to year or basically month to month. So I keep an eye on it, and it's just starting to rust. That's all there is to it. And this mower saves, cuts 11 feet wide. I can cut almost all the fields in the entire town in one day. Usually, it takes me 2 days, but
But
that's a
you've got
must.
that in placeholder status for now, right? The expensive one. It's a lot
Yes.
of money for a mower.
Yeah,
Jeez.
yeah,
Get a couple of cars for that. All right.
yeah.
And it's more affordable to get the mowers and do this work in-house than contract the rec field mowing out.
I thought about that, and being a golf course superintendent, we contracted a lot of the work out, and it was a disaster.
Okay.
It never worked out. They didn't show up for work.
Unreliable.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
just unreliable. And it's the same boat. we're all fighting for the next employee, you know, and it's just, I don't know, I don't see it. And nobody really does it, and that, this is huge areas we're cutting. Even a golf course, there's golf course management companies that come in and they manage the golf course, but they're huge.
Yeah.
How many ball fields do we have?
We have Acorn Hill Ball Field, we have Center Field, we have West River Field, and we have Woodbridge Athletic Field on Pease Road.
Sounds like a
Plus-
fundraising opportunity. I'm serious.
Yeah, and also we have the town grounds around the tennis courts. We mow around the Fitzgerald walking trails. We even mow around the trails at the Woodbridge Golf Course.
Okay,
That's slowed down because we just don't have the manpower anymore. So,
thank you.
any questions with the, any more questions with the capital? No? So my operating budget, there's just a couple of changes I'd like to explain to you that are important to me. Our seasonal help. We usually have a college student and 2 seasonal employees, and we usually start at $20 an hour. I want to end that. I want to start them at $25 an hour. Because if you ask around like I've been doing, all the mower companies are paying $25 an hour. We are not. And what we're getting is the bottom of the barrel, and I'm tired of it. It's bad, you know, I just can't get good help.
Unreliable.
Oh, it's terrible. You know, if you have a $25 an hour, then you're competitive, you're in the ballgame. It's just the way it is, and that's what that increase is.
And the rentals, that's a big,
That is the rental portable restrooms.
okay.
They have told me it's going up $100 a month per unit. Also, I need to have the portable restrooms added on 2 months, March and November. They're starting earlier and they're playing later, so I've gotta have the portable restrooms out there. Usually I just, you know, April, and everyone would be screaming at me, you gotta have porta potties, gotta have porta potties. April, but it's not that way anymore.
October.
Yeah, but now it's March till November. Plus, in the past, they delivery charge, they never charged me, but now it's $75 just to deliver one portable restroom, plus $75 at the end of the season to take it away. So that's another additional cost.
Sounds like a fundraising opportunity.
And then we have another portable restroom that we keep the Fitzgerald walking trails year-round.
Right,
And that cost goes up because there's winterization, and that goes up another $100
Right.
because you can't let the liquid freeze,
Yeah,
because
you
they won't be able to pump it
well,
out.
it's a big increase, the dollars.
Big
are-
time.
Yeah, yeah.
But we're gonna go out to bid this year, which we're gonna be doing in a couple weeks, so
Okay.
hopefully we'll get somebody. But, you know, a big company bought everybody out, and they're just naming their price. You want a porta potty? This is what it costs. And it's expensive. Recreation bought, or rented one porta potty for the road race, cost them $1,000.
And the company in the meantime is flush with success. Okay, I'm sorry, okay. Okay,
Pardon my ignorance, but are seasonals, they're part-time?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, they're
so-
not part-time, they're full-time seasonal.
So are
Full-time
they able to earn overtime or time and a half?
We don't usually have overtime. We have
Okay.
overtime in the, late in the season for baseball tournaments that Dwight pays for the overtime. Other than that, we don't have overtime.
And how many seasonals do you usually
3.
have? 3.
Plus, we have 2 full-time employees.
Okay.
okay. Any other
Thank you.
questions for Adam on perks? Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Good to see you.
Have a good night, everybody.
Suzanne, may I say something before I leave?
Of course.
I forgot something. Very important.
Oh,
Oh, I know what you're gonna say.
Tony knows
know what
exactly
you're
what
gonna
it
say,
is. On Friday, we did a boiler inspection at the center building. We have 2 large steam boilers, very large. The first boiler number 1 was replaced in 2017. Boiler number 2 is a 99 boiler. Number 2 is leaking.
I'm not gonna let you talk anymore. Every time
I
you
almost
get up here,
forgot.
Something's leaking.
I
Okay.
thought, Tony, you would have caught that.
Yeah, yeah.
That's not good. That is very bad. You can't get parts for a 99 boiler. It's an 11-section steam boiler,
Oh.
put in a 99. The last section's cast iron. It's cracked on the bottom. It's clearly visible it's leaking. I had it inspected yesterday afternoon at 4:30. The only alternative is to change it. The 2017 boiler, the first boiler that I put in, the boiler alone was $34,000.
So you're saying you have to replace a
A
boiler
boiler at the
immediately?
center. No, I can isolate that boiler if it fails and get through the winter, limp through the winter.
There's a second boiler, right?
Yeah, it's a second boiler.
Oh, I see.
Limp through the winter. I can't give you any guarantees if we were to get 3 days of zero.
Do we have dollars on it?
That, that would be difficult
Okay.
to get by.
So Tony's just saying you don't have specific dollars yet on that, so.
We do not.
Yeah.
That was a last-minute inspection Friday. We didn't do anything over the weekend.
Right.
The boilers normally shut off during the day. If it stays mild like it was today, mild 34, 32, we're fine. I can limp through the rest of the winter. 3 days of 0 degrees, that's gonna be a problem.
So you're gonna have to get back to us anyway on this with more
I
information
will.
at some
I just
point,
wanted to
so-
give you a heads
Okay.
up.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
And there's no condensing boilers going in, this is a steam system. I gotta replace it with a steam boiler.
1999, that's,
The boilers are overkill for the space because we've eliminated most of the steam, a lot of the steam in the building, so I have boilers that once did the whole building plus the police department. Now I'm down to half of that. As Dwight knows, these boilers are massive, wreaks havoc on the boilers.
well, thank you for the heads up.
I just wanted to give you a heads
Yeah,
up.
yeah, no. Helpful. Okay, moving on.
Can I say something before Bradley?
Yes.
Just to add to your,
What, is there?
I have a leak over my fireplace in the town clerk.
Quit, Brad, run.
I have a leak next to in the hallway next to the town clerk's office, and a lot of times it'll come into my office, into the carpet.
That I don't know about.
Well, no, where you, in the hallway, it sometimes leaks into
Oh,
the,
that structural? Yeah, I know what you're talking
you know where I'm talking
The
about.
one on the-
There's a new one over the fireplace now, so.
But the flashing in the fireplace, I can do that on my operating phone.
Oh, okay, so Stephanie, you're up next. You're up next, town clerk. Brad, get out of here. Quick. Before somebody else starts leaking.
Throw that in there.
Okay. Hello, Steph.
Hello, everybody. Well, this year is going to be a big year for our office and the registrar's office. We have many responsibilities. Hopefully you have the listing of all of the responsibilities and our positions in the town and in the state. There's town committee caucuses for the parties. There's caucuses for delegates. There's 73 justices of the peace are elected this year. We have, I don't know why we have 73 justices of the peace, but we have 73 for Republican, Democrat, unaffiliated, and other parties. There's a presidential preference primary in April, as we know, primary in August for other candidates, and the presidential election in November, which is huge. We usually have a 90% voter turnout, so we'll probably have 6,000 people, I think, voting. We don't know if that's going to be absentee ballots, if it's going to be early voting. You know, I guessed as best as I could with what we know now. We don't know if we're going to get the new machines for the November election. I don't think so, but we will have a new voter registration and a new election management system. And the state is also looking at our dog program and our land record program and our vitals program, so I don't know what they're going to do with those. Our staff is only part-time, and hopefully they'll stay in place for this difficult upcoming year. This is challenging for all of us throughout the state. Many town clerks and assistants have left the office this year due to the tremendous strain put on the offices with all the new laws, programs, and events happening this year. And they either retired or moved to another office, or there's other towns that are soliciting our offices to take away the town clerks to other towns, or assistant town clerks to other towns that are paying a lot more money. You know, I surveyed some of the towns and I got some of the answers back. $37 an hour, $30, $32, $39 in Ansonia. Madison's $35 an hour. There's a big difference in what our people make. And they're only, these people all are full-time, they all get benefits. My people are just part-time. All these years, I've been here 32 years, I'm a lot older than Brad. I have, I've seen them come and go, but hopefully, you'll take a good look at my budget and see that it's a really important budget this year. I've increased the election line for ballots. The machines have to be repaired and hopefully not replaced this year. I don't know what's gonna happen with that, but our legal notices are gonna be more money. We're gonna have a lot more legals. Postage is gonna be up. I'm really not sure what we're gonna have to do this year, so I did the best I could with the budget.
Any questions for Steph?
I have a question with respects to the cost of voting. I didn't realize how expensive it was to manage voting. It's amazing. Has Woodbridge, Bethany, Orange ever discussed doing like a regional, like a district approach to some of these bigger elections or voting opportunities?
I don't think that's in the cards. I
Okay.
think that the state would have to decide something like that.
I see, that's
You
the
know,
state.
Most of the states, I think except for us and maybe Rhode Island, are all county government.
Right, that's true.
So they go to the county seat to vote. Of course, I'm sure there's another tax bill involved in that too. So maybe we don't want to get involved in that. But
Okay,
It will require a change to Title IX.
okay, thank you.
Stephanie, would you say we're better off as a result of only having one polling location?
We are. We don't have a choice, actually, because there's only one polling location that we can fit everybody in. But most of the towns, like Derby, probably has 7 polling locations.
Right.
And they,
Wow.
Small town.
It's a good point,
Yeah.
so we have.
Ansonia
yeah.
has 8, New Haven has 26 polling places. The state has mandated all of the early voting, and they're not giving the towns any extra money for that. And there's all different laws that they keep passing, a referendum, thank goodness we don't have to do early voting for referendums, they took that out. But the presidential preference primary is 4 days for early voting. There's different times for each one. The presidential election is 14 days. It's
Yeah.
gonna cost a lot of money. That's gonna cost a lot of money. That's in the registrar's budget. But I have all the ballots are between 50 and 70 cents a ballot. And until we get a new voting machines, that might be where we can print them one at a time as someone comes into the building.
They're not gonna go with the
Otherwise,
on demand that we heard last night.
Well,
yeah, see,
yeah,
so,
so thank you at this level for starting the education process for us and for the community, because I can see from what you're saying, and I'm sure we're gonna hear it from the registrars as well, that this year is going to be different, and it's gonna
it
set the
is.
tone
And
and the
then
pace
next year,
going forward.
the budgets will get cut back again. But
Right.
all of our fees, everything in our office is state mandated.
Right,
Right.
Right.
So that's another
unfunded statement.
unfunded state mandated, yes, yes.
Any other questions for Stephanie?
Thank you.
In terms of the staffing, have you ever considered using interns, or is that possible?
It takes probably 2 years to train someone for our office. There's so many things involved. It's not just we don't just do elections. We do vital statistics, births, deaths, and marriages. We do dog licenses. We do land records. We do mapping. We do justice of the peace, notaries. There's just, I hopefully gave a list of all the things that we do in our office and all the different organizations and state and federal organizations that we're responsible to. It wouldn't be feasible, I don't believe. Yeah. Thanks, though.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Registrars of voters.
Sorry, I gotta bring up an extra chair for us. You can have the comfy chair, Anna. Yeah. All right. You okay? Hello?
I have a couple of comments I want to make first.
Oh, I thought you were
Never
gonna,
mind. No, I want to make a couple of comments first. I just want to introduce you to the person who was elected last night to complete the term for the New Haven County Chair of the Roback Association. So congratulations.
through an incredible lapse of judgment.
Well, congratulations, very
And I
nice.
also want to say that at the meeting last night, we found out that it's most probable we will have new tabulators in November. And that means additional training for us, and for the moderators, for the tabulator attendants, which we did not include in our budget. So we'll have to let you know about that as soon as we get here for sure from the Secretary of State that we're going to get those tabulators.
Is the state giving you the machine, giving the towns the
They're supposed
machines?
to be giving
But the
us that.
training is on
The training
each
is on
town?
us.
And the maintenance will be
Oh, okay.
on us probably too.
Got it.
But this supposed to be, the first year is supposed to be included maintenance, and then after that's gonna be a lot more than what is currently
Yeah,
used for our
wow.
old machines.
I mean, the state may provide training, but they're not gonna pay for our time. They're gonna, yeah.
Okay.
That would be just too much to ask.
And before Pennell starts with the actual budget, I just want to say that he has really drilled down on every single election and project that we're doing. He's now the Excel king, I'll tell you. We go over the general things that we need, and then he works all the figures, so he's done a great job.
Good to know.
Just for context, and I will be brief, I just, since there are a lot of new people here, just briefly what the registrars do. I mean, obviously, we do elections, you see that. But in addition to elections, we're responsible for the voter rolls, for doing an annual canvass, for supervised balloting at all the assisted living facilities, which is more time consuming than you might think. Voter outreach. We have early voting, which I'm going to discuss when we get to the budget, because that's a big driver of next year's expenses. And Anna mentioned the committee work. Anna, just so you know, is on the technical committee and has been taking a major role in testing the new voter database system. And I'm on the handbook committee, and as she said, the chair of the New Haven committee. We do that to try to be involved in the community. So there's a lot of changes coming. I know Stephanie talked about them. Early voting, which I'm going to give a little more detail on in a second. A new voter database, which will be coming up in June. That will involve training. It's very different than the current system we have, which is, I don't know, I want to say almost 20 years old at this point. And the new tabulators, we were told last night they're down to 2 vendors. And so we may well have them by November. I don't know. The Secretary of State has proven quite, able to get things done. So I would not be shocked. So obviously we have a substantial increase in the budget. The primary driver, which is early voting. To give you context on early voting, for a normal general presidential election, we budget for the election day, the pre-work that Ann and I have to do, training that has to be given to poll workers, 620 employee hours, with 14 days of early voting. And we have budgeted for the minimum the state will let us get away with, which is 4 people. Okay, well, we think 4. It could well, when the final rule come out, change. 4 people. That's 520 additional hours, both the training and the time on the job. So, by context, it really, increases. And then we have a primary in August. So, of the increase you see here, $24,000 is attributable to early voting. Now, there is a $10,500 state grant which we have been given for this year. It's not in our budget. I'm not sure how Tony's going to record it. We are expecting to spend $3,000 to $4,000 this year, this fiscal year, for the presidential preference primary. The balance will be available for the general election and the primary. So, we'll see. And the additional increase year over year is primarily additional training that's going to be required. And the fact that the 2 elections that we're running, the primary and the general election, are more complicated than this year's municipal election because we have multiple districts. And also, I don't know if you remember the last presidential election, we had lines out into the, spiraling into the police lot. So we budget for a few more bodies that sounds bad, a few more poll workers. We love our poll workers, we have a very good group of poll workers. So, now you can open for any questions.
I do have one
Oh.
other comment though. We found out that early voting, we have to have a moderator every day. So we are now sending 6 people to moderator training. They have to be certified moderators.
Oh,
Even
yeah.
though there's no tabulator at early voting, you still have to go through the moderator training. So we've identified 6 more people because you can't have one person do
Yeah.
14 days in a row. I mean, it's impossible.
Yeah, and our go-to moderators are getting older.
Well, one just broke his hip.
Yeah, so,
That bad, but he's doing
Oh,
well.
no.
Don't tell me he's leaking, we've heard enough of that, I don't
You
want
know,
that, okay.
And we anticipate Mary Lee Barker to do the absentee ballot and early voting counting because she'll have to set up procedures for that and she's perfect at doing that. So,
Okay.
we're trying to train some more moderators for
If
the
the s-
early voting and for the election.
if the state would allow registrars to act as the moderators for early voting, we could, be more efficient, but
They said no.
they won't, they said no, because they feel that they have a legal reason why they said no, but they said
Okay.
no.
Any questions for Pennell or Anna? If not, let me just say thank you, because without the two of you, this wouldn't work. So it's very important
Well, there are
what you're
people
doing.
here that we ran the election for, so.
Yeah, so thank you very much.
Thank you, no, thank you. Oh, yeah. All right, good night, thank you.
Thank you.
We're slowly but surely getting back on schedule. Okay. We are looking for Marcia, the assessor. Oh, there you are.
So, you all have like the description of what the office does, but I thought that this, if I can hand this out, it just makes it a little easier to read of what comes into the office and what we produce, instead of just that summary. It's the same thing, but just easier to read.
There's only one.
So just the green side is what comes into us, and the blue side is what we put out. So I'm Marcia Benno. I have about 22 years' experience in the assessor's office, and I've been here in Woodbridge for 3 years. What the assessor's office does is we take information from various departments, as town clerk, building department, Department of Motor Vehicle, from the public, and from adhering to town and state statutes and ordinances. And we have to process that information and to create the grand list. Okay, so like this says, we take deeds from the town clerks, death certificates, probate, survey maps, trade name certificates, and veteran DD 214s. From building, we have to process permits, demos, zoning, and certificates of occupancy. DMV, we do regular motor vehicle list, supplemental motor vehicle list, address changes, dealer plates, and templates. From the public, we do the homeowners, renters, veterans, blind, fire, farm forests and open space, income and expense reports, quadrennials, Board of Assessment Appeals and Court Appeals, personal property declarations and exemptions, motor vehicle adjustment documents, address changes, and trusts. So we take all that information and we have to process it in order to create the real estate, personal property, and motor vehicle grand lists. We have to price about, let's see, we have 3,700 parcels on the 22 grand list. And right now, in process 23 grand list, we have 3,077 because of the new development down on Bradley and Litchfield. Motor vehicle, in 22, we had about 7,900 motor vehicles, and 8,000 this year. And when those come through, they come through priced mostly. But last year, I had to manually price 924 of them, and this year I had to price manually 1,442 motor vehicles. Supplemental, we have about 1,200, and 22, I had to price about 509, and personal property, we have about 625 accounts. So based on that, and the budget, I don't have very much of an increase for my operating budget. It's mostly, there was an increase in the mapping services, and then there was an increase for the pricing guides, because our motor vehicle pricing guides, recommendation by the Office of Policy and Management is J.D. Power book, and it used to be NADA, and we used to have a flat roughly $500 fee. And now J.D. Power is charging for per lookup, per vehicle, for online access, which increases to about $1,800 this year.
Do we have to make that switch? Or could we
Well,
stick to the previous year?
No, J.D. Power purchased NADA, yep, and the Office of Policy and Management, that's their recommended guide.
Yeah.
So all 169 towns use that guide,
Okay.
and the Department of Motor Vehicles as well. Hopefully next year, if legislation passes, we'll be able to use a cheaper book and use MSRP and not have to value based on average retail value anymore, so.
When you say hopefully, is that up to,
The legislature.
thank you.
Could you repeat for me the number of homes on the grand list?
Last year, there was 3,700 parcels in town.
3,700
And this year, we have 3,777.
Any other questions for Marcia?
Marcia, maybe you could just briefly go over your capital request?
Oh, yes. So, I forgot, this year is a revow year. So, in the capital request I have, this is a high value, estimate. They couldn't give me an actual quote yet until we get, what they need, but I told them pretty much what we need is everything except inspections. So the revaluation based on market sales, the review of income and expense statements for the valuation of commercial properties, the sending out of the notices they send out notices to homeowners to just verify what we have on our list, on our property card is what they have.
So is CAMA modeling assistance, this is the software you're using? Or is this a vendor what is it?
Well, the CAMA is a software program.
Okay.
It's computer assist.
So this cost is associated with the software?
That, no,
No, the
that's
87.
separate. We have a CAMA, we have we have software that we use throughout the year.
Well, I'm trying to figure out what this is
revaluation
for.
is just for them to revalue, to look at all the sales in the past year.
Okay.
To
Don't
take,
mansplain.
to
She's
take
talking
those
to me. Yeah, go
market
ahead.
values and to revalue all the properties.
Okay.
So if values right now, from what I could see, are 30% higher than the 2019 list, they have to appropriately assign the updated values based on if it's a Cape, if it's a ranch, if it's colonial, what are those comparables selling for? The square footage, condition, they have to look at all of that to come up with the new values for the 2024 list.
Oh,
So the
okay.
80,000 is for the consultant who does this?
Right.
Thank you.
That's where I was confused, because it didn't sound like a capital expense.
Right, it's the CAMA
Yeah.
company because they have revaluation employees there.
Got it.
Right.
So it qualifies as capital because the life of it will be long enough to
Right.
make it, and it's every 10 years we do this?
Every
revaluation?
5 years, we do a revaluation.
5. So 5 years from now, we'll do it again
Right.
potentially?
Right.
So 5 years' life is long enough to put it on capital?
It wasn't clear from, obviously, we all needed an explanation, so that's helpful. Other thoughts, questions? Okay.
And then I just have Board of Assessment Appeals as well, if you want me to
Please.
Oh, yeah,
do
that's
that
on
one.
here too.
There, there's no increases on that. The Board of Assessment Appeals are 3 members on the board, and then there's a secretary. They get $25 an hour for sitting to hear the appeals. Plus, they have the postage and stationery and envelopes for sending out the notices of when they have to go for their hearing. but there's no increase on that budget.
No increase is what we like to hear. No increase and no leaking. Yeah, okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Pat, tax collector. 11:55.
Good evening. I'm Pat Crisco, the tax collector here for about 24 years. I'd just like to give you a quick rundown on what we do in our office. What we do is we turn into money, what Martha is this stuff. We turn it into dollars so that we can collect it. Let's see, we'll start. We collect taxes, of course, real estate, motor vehicle, personal property, supplemental motor vehicle. Real estate and personal property over $100 are at twice a year, otherwise it's once a year. Motor vehicles are always once a year, except that the supplemental we bill in January, and that's for a portion of the year that someone got a car after October 1st of a given year, before this next September. Our collection rate, which we have been extremely proud of and have boasted about for a few years, we've been in the top 10 of 169 towns for a number of years. And the towns that are above us, most of them either sell their liens or they do tax sales, so their initial income is really high. But they still have to carry other things that we don't have to get involved in. The only thing we have done here is I've done foreclosures, usually sometimes a few a year. Very seldom does it go all the way to foreclosure. We've had, in the years I've done it, I think I've had 3 that have gone all the way. And I now have one, we had one foreclosure that we were concerned about, and the state has now taken it off our hands because they owe this, it happened to be a trust that kind of went bad. So we don't have to worry about that, but we'll get our money, and our attorney will also be paid from it. We have another foreclosure that's out there that's probably gonna have to go, but, what else do we do? Over the years, we started opening on Saturday morning, the last Saturday to pay. This Saturday will be open from 9 to 12. Barring horrible weather, which usually goes pretty well. And then the very last day to pay is always the 1st of the month, 1st of February, and we'll be here till 7 o'clock. And we have our regulars that come. They come late, that's how they do it. Other things we do in our office, we do work for finance. We've done work for finance over the years. We have a program called the Small Cities Program. It started back in '05. We won a grant in '05, '08, and '12 for $300,000 each. And it was to be, it started by HUD, goes through the state, and then we applied for the grant and won them. It goes to people who are eligible by income. It's all income related, and we've done all types of really wonderful things over the years. Roofs, handicap ramps, furnaces, just all kinds of things like that. And what happens with the money is it becomes a mortgage on the home. There's never any interest. The town gets paid back that money when either the house is sold or the owner in whose name it has been passes away. And that money we have used for other projects. When Beth was here, we used it for the bathroom in the senior center and for the handicap ramp on the outside. This year, we've done 3 roofs, very badly needed roofs for people. And those projects are all finished now. Now we just kind of hope, I don't want to say we hope we get money back because it means something's happened, but in a lot of cases, the houses are sold and we'll get the money back. I think that's, mainly it's, I think just, we've tried to run an office that's fairly personable. We have really good relationships with a lot of people. And we've stayed very strict on rules. The biggest one is we never forgive interest. And once you start doing that, once you forgive interest, you're in trouble. So we've made a very, very firm rule about never doing it. I think that's about it.
Any questions for Pat?
Just a comment. Thank you in public. We've gone over it. I know you and I have, in what you're
Thank you.
doing, being in the top 10 and the way you're doing it. Thank you very much. Kudos to you
Thank
for
you.
what you're able to
I
accomplish.
actually enjoy the job, so that's
Yeah.
why I'm still
You're doing
here.
it well. Thank you.
Thank you. If anyone has any questions on the budget, mainly the changes are postage is going way up again.
It looks pretty steady. I mean, it's not,
Yeah.
there's no
We
big
did
chunks here.
ask for some more on,
Professional development.
professional
Yeah.
development.
Yeah.
We hadn't been doing that, and it's really necessary. It's an important, I've been, president of the New Haven chapter for a number of years, and I finally stepped back recently. But, it's important to have contact with other tax collectors. Even the ones that tend to do things a little differently, you can pick up really good information from going to these meetings, and that's kind of what Marcia goes through too.
I'm sure we all join Nika in saying thank you.
Yes.
Right?
Any questions?
No, I think we're all set.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, we are going to move on to Amity Regional School District. Good evening.
Hello, everyone. So I know that this information has been shared with you.
This is tab 1920.
Doing one last
In the
push
front.
to invite you to the elected officials day. It is not too late to RSVP for the February 2nd day if you are able to come to the school. We don't often have a chance to open it up when children are there, but this is one of them, and we would love to have you there. If you are able to attend on, unfortunately, January 26th is a little too late for our culinary students to get their act together. But if you are able to come on February 2nd, if you could just email Ms. Castellon tomorrow, because we're right at about our last ditch opportunity to put you on our RSVP. And with that, I'm gonna block this call in. All right, thank you so much for having me. Mr. Lofters had the benefit of seeing this at the Finance Committee. The clock ran out of batteries, it stopped. I thought I presented for about 15 minutes, it was closer to 45, but when the clock wasn't moving, I was like, I'm doing a great job. It's only 5:50 this evening. So I will try to go through this fairly quickly. I know you've been here for a long time. So as a reminder, regional budgeting is governed by Connecticut general statutes. What we are really asked to do is prepare an estimate for what we think the expenses will be to run the school for the following year. The reason why that word estimate is so critical is we really start planning about 18 months out. We begin in September of the year prior to the fiscal year. So essentially, we start budgeting for the subsequent school year in the same month that the actual school year is starting. The variability of what happens over the course of essentially those 2 years, because a lot changes during the budget year, is pretty significant, which is why the statutes emphasize so much that concept of estimate, as opposed to thinking of it like sort of like your household budget, which is a little more kind of finite and specific. We have it, our budget is grounded in a couple significant areas, the first being the board's mission, the board's goals, which really focus on instruction, efficient use of resources, and having a positive school climate. Our overall commitment to a comprehensive educational experience for our students. So comprehensive, think of it as very well-rounded, strong academics, strong arts, strong athletics. And our BOA, Portrait of the Graduate, which is really a vision that all three of our communities put together of what we hope to see students from Amity be like when they leave essentially our K-12 educational system. So Part of the statute does require sort of an overview of our success in the past year. Academics, there is one thing that I want to take an opportunity when I do have sort of a broader audience to stress. There has been some alarming misinformation published in papers that says Amity has eliminated honors classes and AP classes. It is flat out incorrect. So while I have this opportunity, I would just highlight we have 28 advanced placement courses, 42 honors courses, 4 UConn early college experience classes, a robust science research program, and combined between our middle and high schools, over 110 student organizations and clubs. We absolutely maintain a rigorous, high-performing academic selection for our students, and I just want to lay the record straight right here and now. We have an incredible amount of achievement by our students, 16 National Merit Commended Scholars and 7 semifinalists. We have 8 seniors currently in our pre-apprenticeship manufacturing program. Marissa Nall, a teacher at Amity Middle School Bethany, was one of the Connecticut Teacher of the Year semifinalists. We had over 70 awards for our science research programs last year in various science competitions, and the Trident, our school student newspaper, for the 2nd year in the row has received the first place award from the American Scholastic Press Association. Our math team placed first in the Connecticut Math Association competition. Our decathlon team was named the Rookie of the Year at the national competition held in Texas. Our investment club placed 2nd in the Wharton's International Investing World Challenge. So globally, they placed 2nd overall. And our Junior States of America received recognition as the Northeast Chapter of the Year. The board gets about 20 more slides of all of our achievements. I could go on indefinitely, but we certainly have a tremendous amount of success for our students. Our graduates are also extremely successful. We have a 96% graduation rate. 86% of those students go on to 4-year schools, supported by over $110,000 in awards and scholarships. You can also see some of the changing demographics in how our seniors are approaching their college application. So for the current class of 2024, we had 105 early decision applications submitted. The early action, we had over 1,300. That's up 300 from the previous year. So we're having a definite shift in students applying for college much earlier. Overall, we have 282 students report admission as of January 8th. So that number's probably gone up by now. That's 104 students higher at the same time than last year. So again, you put your applications in early, obviously you get your acceptances much earlier, but we're definitely seeing that shift, and that's kind of a national phenomenon. We adhere to something called Connecticut's Next Generation Accountability Index. This is the State Department of Education's measure of how schools are doing. It's a little more comprehensive than just looking at, say, the US News and World Report or the niche reports and whatever grade you have. This covers all kinds of areas from your traditional academics like math and English language arts, to graduation rates, access to collegiate level classes at the high school level, absentee rates, phys ed participation or phys ed results on the state fitness test, arts access, so a pretty comprehensive look. These are our DIRG B districts sort of across the graph, DIRG B being similar towns and school districts like Amity. Amity is the yellow in the middle. The red bars to the left of Amity are Bethany and Woodbridge, and the red bar to the right of Amity is orange. So part of the story is kind of all of the schools in the middle, and you can't read the numbers really well, but there is a wide swath of DIRG B schools that score somewhere between 83 and 80. We're very, very similar in terms of our performance with other comparable school districts. I think the other interesting thing is we are positioned sort of perfectly in the middle of our 3 sending districts, so it would make sense that sort of the inputs in sort of turn around into the outputs that we put out. So the district forms priorities based off of much of that next generation accountability data, as well as the goals of the Board of Education. Some of the priorities that are built into the budget include continuing to support that comprehensive programming, addressing efforts to improve school attendance. Our chronic absenteeism, although it has gone up significantly since last year, is still not returned to pre-pandemic levels, pretty consistent with what we see in other districts across this state. We do want to improve our identification and interventions for students who are struggling and below grade level, particularly in the area of math. We've done a phenomenal job in that in the area of English over the course of the past 10 years. I can't really take credit for instituting it, just maintaining something that somebody else did. But math is an area where we are seeing an increasing number of needs. We do want to increase more opportunities for students to earn collegiate credit through dual enrollment courses at the high school. We have several unfunded mandates that we have to address this year. We have our phase-in of our Portrait of the Graduate mastery-based portfolio credit, and then we are constantly updating our curriculum to make sure that it's aligned to standards as well as rigorous. Quick review, athletics. This is something that I used to share at some of our athletic award banquets. The number of student athletes we have participating each season is pretty phenomenal. When you consider the size of the program and the budget between our athletic director and some of his support staff, the number of kids he has run through a program it's just amazing. We offer 25 high school varsity sports. We have 12 middle school sports. We have a robust unified sports program for our middle, high school, and Amity Transition Academy students. And what that ultimately results in is teams that are highly successful, winning several SEC championships. That's our division that we compete in for the area. And we have a lot of individuals who are incredibly successful, from all SEC athletes to all state athletes to coaches of the year. Our athletics program does produce results that our students see in terms of their success. In the area of the arts, we kind of look at the arts in sort of three different ways. Our musical arts, our students participate in adjudication with the Southern Regional Music Festivals, as well as a ton of community performances, including Memorial Day parades. I think some of them played at inaugurations this year. In the area of visual arts, our students will enter national competitions as well. Probably the prestigious one is the Scholastic Arts Competition, where we do receive recognition in all kinds of visual arts media, from photography to painting to drawing to multimedia. We were on the World News last year. You probably heard or saw a little bit about it, about the amazing work our photography students did, restoring photos that had been damaged during hurricanes that had happened to pass through Florida. We do local exhibits at all of our libraries. And in the performing arts, we have musical programs at both the middle schools, as well as a very strong drama program that's at the high school, doing both a formal play, typically in the fall, and then a spring musical. This spring, we happen to be doing a performance of Mean Girls. It is still on Broadway, so we were even able to bring the cast of Mean Girls to the school to have a workshop with our students who were auditioning for the spring musical. So in terms of our budget overview, we have a couple budget drivers that are really impacting our request that we're asking for this year. When you look at our proposed budget, the blue to the right and the red are salaries and benefits. So about 2/3 of our budget goes directly into the personnel that we need to run the school. The green is special education. That is a mandate that we are obligated to provide through both federal and state law. The orange is debt service, so think of that as essentially our obligations for the bonds we have. It's not something that we can not pay off, much like your town would never not pay off your debt service, which really leaves the areas of purchase service, techs and supplies, and a very thin slice of other as the places where at times we have some discretion. But the discretion is somewhat limited. So for example, purchase services includes things like our snowplow contractor. That's not really discretionary. I have to have somebody come and plow our parking lots. It includes things like tree removal, legal services. So there's definitely some sort of obligated expenses that even come into some of those accounts that are maybe not quite as obviously fixed costs. You can see Two comparisons here, because salaries and benefits are so significant. I always try to look and see sort of where our contractual increases are compared to our budgetary increases. The blue line are the contractual increases, the orange are the budget increases. And what's really noticeable is the shift between 2004 and 2005. And so Amity just recently settled a contract with our teachers union, which is our largest union. It's a 13.49% increase over 3 years. This is a lot compared to what you would have seen for the past 2 contract negotiations, but it's very much within sort of the state averages that we are seeing in districts across the state of Connecticut. What that translates to is just for next year alone, the average teacher salary increase is 4.85%. That includes both general wage increases as well as steps. There were some other things that we included in that contract, including a tuition reimbursement program, allowing more use of sick time for family medical leave. Our health care is actually levelly funded. In other words, we didn't ask them to contribute more to health care. That's because we have one of the highest healthcare costs for our teachers probably in the state of Connecticut. Of course, all of this is driven by the fact that we have a bit of a teacher shortage in the state of Connecticut, a lot of vacancies, and so this is why a lot of towns are in a position where bargaining unit agreements are a little bit higher than what we've seen. 2 of the unknowns are that we still have 2 contracts that we are negotiating this spring, one for our paraeducators union and one for our school nurses union. Several unfunded state mandates that we have to attend to, all of them coming out of the last legislative session. At the top, the previous legislative session at the bottom. There is now a requirement that every student beginning in the class of 2027 have a credit in financial literacy. So that is adding a need for some additional staff. We also now have a provision that we have to provide special education services through the end of the school year in which a student turns 22. So about 3 years ago, we used to provide special education services through the end of the school year when they turned 21. Then there was a ruling from the state. We had to provide it up until the day before their 22nd birthday. Exiting a kid from school in November because their birthday happens to be on, November 15th didn't really make any sense. So now we have the provision that we provide it through the end of the school year when they turn 22. This has a fairly significant impact on the budget because the students who stay with us until they turn 22 are our most needy students, typically requiring a significant out-of-district placement, special transportation, oftentimes some very specialized supports. And so adding that extra time is driving some of our special education costs. There's also a requirement that we have a district transition coordinator. I'll talk a little bit about what that responsibility is. Several new required trainings, and then we still have sitting behind us the HVAC inspection requirements that they put in the previous session, as well as the requirement for the free feminine hygiene products in all of our restrooms. So in terms of a personnel fiscal impact, this budget does request 4 additional certified staff or teachers. The first is a middle school math interventionist. The board, with the support of the referendum, added 1 last year. That person is shared between the 2 middle schools, and on the day she's not in her middle school, there's a paraeducator who is working in the other middle school. The request would be to reassign that paraeducator and to have both middle schools have a full-time math intervention specialist. As I noted, there are some needs in the area of math that we have to address where some students are performing below grade level. We would also look to add a high school math interventionist. Currently, we have tutors who serve in this role, and because they are tutors, we actually can't assign students to them like a class. It would be a violation of the teacher's bargaining agreement. So what we do is we ask a student who's struggling in math to please, during your study hall, won't you go see the tutor and get help in the subject that you're struggling the most in? I suppose you can imagine the success rate we have with that when we're talking about 14 and 15 and 16-year-olds when we're telling them to use their study hall to get extra help in math. By hiring a math intervention teacher, we could actually make it a class. It could be part of their schedule. We could take attendance. We could track whether or not they're coming, let their parents know, and again, provide that support for students with somebody who really is certified in the subject area in which we're asking to provide support.
Are you able to use high school students, seniors, as tutors for some of these kids if they fall behind?
We have a peer tutoring program, and our National Honor Society students also oftentimes will help to tutor students. A, that is not considered a formal school intervention.
I understand that.
Right, and then B, that one also
But it
requires.
is, but it looks like it could be an avenue.
Yep.
For somebody who's struggling to
Absolutely.
go see one of his peers for help.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, that takes a very brave teenager sometimes to do that. We are asking for the addition of a financial literacy teacher. We currently have 2 teachers in our business department. We have a robust number of course offerings. Unfortunately, the new requirement will require us to increase our financial literacy sections from 6 to 15. Increasing that to 15 to meet the requirement for every single student who needs it for graduation will essentially decimate the business program. So a lot of those electives that we're offering would no longer be available to students. And then finally, the special education transition coordinator. These individuals work directly with students who are ages 14 and older and their parents through the PPT or the planning placement team process to coordinate the transition from being in high school to the activities that they need for success in college, career, or for community readiness. There are some additional requests for personnel. None of these are actual certified staffing positions, with the exception of the school mental health staff grant phase-in. We were recipients of a state mental health grant last year, and part of the expectation of the grant was that the state would fund it, but then over the course of 3 years, their proportion of the funding would decrease, with the expectation that the district's portion of the funding would increase and that we would maintain that individual. That particular mental health specialist is our school attendance outreach coordinator and is working directly to address the needs of our students who are chronically absent and who are not coming to school regularly. Technology is ubiquitous to what we do in education now. Our technology budget is fairly significant. The 2 most driving, actually 3 most driving things is the maintenance of the one-to-one device program where every student has a laptop. We actually are finding that they are more durable. We don't have to replace them quite at the same speed that we thought we had to. So the replacement cycle isn't quite as dramatic as we thought it might be 3 years ago. We're learning a lot, but you still do have to ultimately replace those laptops. The instructional displays, which are the interactive whiteboards, Promethean boards, projectors, big screen TVs. Every single classroom has them. They are used daily, and at some point they have wear and tear. I will tell you, our original request had over 40 of them. We definitely would have let that down over a 5-year plan, but you can sort of understand the need when you have more than 40 teachers asking for a new interactive whiteboard. And then finally, some specialized labs. We do have labs where the student laptop just simply can't run the software. So think of like a high school graphics lab, a high school photography lab, and those labs do need to be replaced. The one that we're asking for hasn't been replaced for 10 years, and the computers really are obsolete and no longer really able to function. Pupil services, commonly called special education. I will not go through everything on this list. It's more of a visual display to show you how much is covered under the special education department. Our special education prevalence rate has gone up over the past 6 years. Basically, 1 in 4 students used to have either an IEP or a 504 plan. Now it's about 1 in 3. We did sort of peak at the tail end of the pandemic, and we are sort of dropping back down, but continuing to sort of hang around that 30% mark. So some of the drivers in our special ed department include outplacements, some very specialized services like students who require a one-to-one nurse, the provision that we have to maintain the students until the end of the year when they turn 22, some legal expenses, several behavioral therapists. Overall, the pupil services budget is up about 5.5%. Last year, it went down about 11%, so this is sort of the balance that we see as students move into the district and as students move out of the district. So we will see some fairly significant swings. We have several uncertainties that are still part of the pupil services budget, including excess cost reimbursement, which we just got notice yesterday that it's not even close to 80%. It's not even close to what they gave us last year. The state significantly underfunded it, and so that is always a variable. Our 34 students who are in the high cost out of district placements constantly have changing needs, both in terms of programming and transportation. And then we do have some unexpected mobility where students will just move in from other districts. But at the same token, our students sometimes move out. So that's, again, causing some shifts in our budget there. Transportation, for the first time in a long time, we are adding a school bus driven primarily by 2 developments in the town of Orange that are significantly, we're starting to feel the impact of those developments more at the elementary level, but we do have some new students who have just enrolled, and actually the elementary district in Orange added the bus for this year. Because they're starting to have those units be occupied, we can hold off, but we will add the bus for next year in anticipation of the new enrollment. We have a capital plan that's both included in the budget for next year, but then we also have a 5-year plan. Some of the things that we have in there include classroom furniture, concrete repair, painting the exteriors of the middle school. If we are so fortunate as to have unexpended funds at the end of the year, one of the first things we might consider is a renovation of our middle school library media centers. We're renovating the high school library media center. Currently, it hasn't been updated since 1996. It's a little out of date. The middle schools aren't much better, but we figured the high school could get the first crack at it. Looking at some lower bleacher replacement in the main gym at the high school. And we have identified some items, very small ticket items, that we might use contingency funds for at the end of this year if we happen to have those. Our 5-year projects, again, include the media center modernization, replacing the gymnasium stage lights at the middle schools. We had a request for that for the past couple of years due to some technical difficulties when they put on their musicals. Repairing the walking track up at Amity Middle School Bethany, doing some upgrades to the baseball and softball fields at the high school, and all of this is in much more detail. A quick reminder that statutorily we are able to set aside up to 2% into a capital non-recurring fund of the unexpended funds if we happen to have those at the end of the year. Our technology plan, again, rather than sort of trying to replace everything all at once, we do have a 5-year plan that includes replacing teacher laptops, other specialty labs, sort of stretching out all of those interactive whiteboards that we have to replace and putting them into a 5-year cycle, security cameras, and we are identifying the need to set aside money to do our technology infrastructure replacement. We did that about 5 years ago. That's everything you don't see in the background that actually makes the technology work. So switches, servers, Wi-Fi access points, all of the wiring. It cost about $1.3 million the last time we did the replacement. Rather than sort of hitting everybody with a huge ask, we are setting aside money in the CNR if we have that available. So that way when we need it, we are able to replace it without too much of a burden on the town. We have a 5-year plan for textbooks. Again, the idea is to try to make it not have wild swings, and so we look at purchasing those over the course of 5 years. Our debt service is going down. This is actually helpful because the impact of the teacher's contract is not quite as significant with the decrease in the debt service. Our enrollment, which is sort of what determines the proportion of the budget, is going back up. The nice thing is, I we've had sort of fluctuating enrollment. When it's gone down, we haven't cut teachers because it's really difficult to do that at a middle high school level. As it goes up, we're also not really adding teachers to address enrollment needs. Again, we can sort of weather that storm in a way that sometimes elementary schools can't because of the way that their classes are limited by class size. And of course, the proportion of students is really what drives your budget. Bethany seems to have the good fortune of having a significant decrease in enrollment, which turns around to actually having an impact of sort of overemphasizing your increases in enrollment. So this is sort of the nuts and bolts. The overall budget request increase is 4.9% higher than the current school year. You can see how that impacts the individual towns. Ms. Loomis and I kind of keep an eye on this to see if we're wildly out of range for the rest of the state of Connecticut. The average right now of all superintendents is 5.28. The average for Durg B is 5.38. What you can see though is the wild swing in range, and you can almost probably tie that to those districts that are operating on older teacher contracts and those districts who recently negotiated the teacher contracts that have much more significant wage increases. So again, we're sort of not on that high side, in a large part because of our debt service. If that debt service hadn't been decreasing, we would probably be on that higher end of the range like many of the other districts. We have several important dates coming up, including Monday, March 11th, which is when the Amity Board of Education is going to have to approve a budget, our public hearing and our public meeting, and eventually the referendum on May 7th. I am happy to answer questions. Ms. Loomis is more than capable of doing that as well. The other thing we do is we maintain a document on our website where we will update sort of running questions throughout the entire spring. So you can email your questions to Mr. Lofters as the member of AFC. He can access the document, type them in. Ms. Loomis and I check it about once a week. We put the answers. So it's both a good place to ask questions, but it's also a good reference because you'll see the questions that other people are asking and then the answers that we're providing. And so with that, I will entertain questions.
Thank you very much. And thank you for reminding us about the question
Yeah.
through
it's a
Donovan.
It's a shared folder, it's a shared drive. And I think I'm the only one with access, I think. So I guess I'll just print out the questions, just email it and
Great. Okay. Any questions?
responses.
I had just a couple of questions. I know we have some information in our packet about both the enrollment shift, but it looks like, so for Woodbridge, there's an additional 19 students being projected. But at the same time, there's a column here about higher revenue. Can you tell us anything about why the revenue is different for each of the three towns?
Sheila, which page are you on?
So it's page 26 of the digital packet.
It's also page 26 of the hard
Is the
copy.
paper, okay.
Thank you.
So what the other revenue source does is it's subtracted from the total budget, and then the balance is what the towns have to, develop as their allocation rate. So it's the impact of that other revenue to your,
Right. So even though Orange has a larger increase, a larger swing with additional enrollment,
Almost the same.
they don't have a larger swing when it comes to the allocation of costs because their revenue is also higher? Am I reading that right?
So they have an enrollment shift of 438,000. They have the higher revenue offsets that by 52. But then the operating expenses. Are you looking at the last column, the prior year's credit? Are you on which page? I'm
Nope,
sorry, the
page 26.
26, okay.
27 on this one.
Sorry. Yeah, but
So
it's just
Orange
a-
does have a higher allocation of 386,000. It's just because they're near 50%, so that other revenue benefits them. at that rate. Okay, so it's the same revenue increases, it's not different rates for different towns, it just is the percentage of your enrollment being applied?
Right.
Okay, that's what I wanted to understand. And then I just had a quick question about planned capital bonding. You had a slide up there that showed that the cost of debt is going down. Do you have anything on the horizon that we should know about that you would take out for bonding, or you're doing it all with capital non-recurring now?
We're trying our best to do it all with capital non-recurring. We have nothing projected on the horizon. The most recent roof projects, which roofs are typically your thing that you bond for, at least with schools, actually extended the life of the roof to another 10 years? 15 years.
15 to 20 years.
15 to
depending
20
on-
years. So we're feeling okay with that, and yeah.
So nothing planned to increase that. And then I guess just lastly, since last year, there's been an understanding of how any surplus, should there be surplus, comes back to the town, and that's, you're sticking with that same, should there be surplus beyond that 2%.
Yes, and so our audit is actually completed, and so there is an anticipated decrease in the amount of the March payment that would be made by the towns to the Amity Board of Education.
So that's this year, but
Yes.
next year, right now, you're not projecting that there'd be much, right?
Next, it's a little tighter this year, between healthcare costs and some unanticipated new enrollments in special education. So, yeah, it's a little tighter.
I just needed a clarification. You said the resolution with the unions is 13.49%. Is that 3 years or 4 years?
3 years.
3 years. Thank you.
There's 2 additional union negotiations.
Right, I was gonna
Yeah, you mentioned that, yeah.
What percentage is that? Is that in terms of your para-educators and your nurses? You said you still have to negotiate with them.
We still have to negotiate those unions. They will, they typically will have they will mimic the teachers, but they oftentimes will sort of follow more along increased lines of our custodial staff and our secretaries. So I don't want to speculate because I don't want to give away
No, I'm
anything,
saying in
but
terms of just the body of the actual number of people.
those are our 2 smallest unions.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, so their impact will be minimal,
Minimal.
even with an
Thank you.
increase. I understand.
What else? Anybody?
I do have a question. It's not specific to the budget, but just a follow-up question. You made a point, a new bus has been added for the first time in a while, and you largely attribute that to 2 developments in Orange. Do you happen to know, just from my knowledge, how long ago those developments were completed or when they were done, like what the lag time is?
To our, I don't know very well, to our understanding, one of them is finished, or at least there's some units finished. They were anticipating, I guess, essential occupancy of them by about April.
Oh, so they're new they're
Yes.
present, okay.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Anyone else? Very informative. Thank you very much, and no doubt we'll still be talking.
Well, thank you. We
Thank
appreciate
you.
the time and the attention late at night.
Thank you for your patience. It turned into a longer evening than we thought. Okay. Thank you for being here. So, that's all we have for tonight.
No, there's general
I usually do those.
administration.
Oh, you don't
and-
count. Yeah, no, okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead. You're right, I didn't see
You're
that.
not making anyone
Okay.
wait.
I didn't see that. We have general administration and probate.
So these are 2 that I administer, so I could just go over these quickly. The first is general administration. General administration contains most notably our budget for our insurance coverage, which is our property, liability, auto insurance for all of our vehicles, our cybersecurity insurance, and our umbrella coverage. So we go out to market for this. This is one of those items I mentioned that would be refined as we go further in the budget process. Typically go out to the market probably in April. And so we'll have a better idea of this by the time the budget hearing takes place. This is a conservative estimate and hopefully will most likely be reduced. we've been seeing a lot of increases lately in the cybersecurity insurance, as you can imagine, and a little bit in the umbrella coverage. But, so we'll stay tuned on that. We have a broker that helps us access the market, and so, you know, provides us with a lot of good information. This also contains the utilities for this building, which is the electric and the natural gas for heat. Those are the other major items. There's also office supplies in here, which contains office supplies mostly for this facility. We're actually hoping that maybe that goes down. We've started some electronic initiatives with the Board of Selectmen in particular. And so we're hoping we save on some copy paper, and even here, we've done a lot less copying than we have in the past. So even though the prices of some of that is increasing, we have kept that budget the same. Maybe it'll go down a little. We'll have to see what our usage is in the next few months.
Tony, is the water just, it's a small,
It's water for this building.
yeah, and
Yeah.
it's not an increase in use, it's just. the
No, it's
cost
just,
of-
the budget's too low. If you look at the actual, which is the first column, it's $2,100. It was probably too low in this current year. Yeah.
I actually had a question about the cybersecurity. Remind me, we've sort of broadened our cybersecurity. It's not just everything in town hall. Are we also doing, do we have other?
So our cybersecurity coverage covers the town hall, it covers the police department,
Police
it covers the fire department.
And the fire department, okay.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's more rigorous every year about
Right.
what we have to include in our networking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Other questions for Tony on this? Okay.
And the last one is very small. It's our probate court, which is our regional probate court. It's about $9,500 each year. We pay that as an assessment to the regional court, which I think is in Ansonia, if I'm correct or not correct. It's the Derby Regional Probate Court, which is in Ansonia. So that's our contribution, which I believe is based off a grand list. So if we do a reval, that might go up a little bit, but that's it.
Okay. Everybody understands probate court now, right? Okay, now we're done.
Okay, now we're done.
Thank you all. Board of Selectmen, 5 o'clock here. We're gonna be, Board of Finance. 5 o'clock here. Okay, and then 6 o'clock joint with Board of Selectmen.
Yes.
Okay, right?
Correct.
On Thursday.
On Thursday.
And then we do the
Thursday.
Yep.
opposite next Tuesday.
Okay.
Yes.
So next Tuesday will be Board of Selectmen at 5 o'clock here with joint
And
meeting
we
at 6
we
o'clock.
show up at 6.
Correct.
Okay. I need paperwork on that. I'm so confused. No, I'm kidding.
Thank you, Susan, for
Thank
leading
you all.
this.
Thank you.
and-
Bad night to say you're saving on copying costs, given the size of these
We used to
books.
do twice as many,
Well, that's true, that's true. Okay, you get credit. Okay.
so.
All right. I don't think we need a
we're
formal
getting there.
motion to adjourn because
Right?
we're not
Yeah.
in formal proceedings, so. Good night, everybody. Be safe out there.